15, cuts left at the 20, on the room at the 30, headed to the near sideline, one man to beat, makes the move at midfield, coming to the near side at the 30, he's at the 20, he's at the 10, 5, touchdown, Kentucky!
And with that, we're off and running with another episode of Believe in Kentucky. My name is Vinny Hardy. We got Aaron Gershon, covers the Cats for the Cats Paws, from UK QB Jalen Whitlow, who gave us that highlight courtesy of Tom Leach, the voice of the Cats. Fellas, it's week 1. We got games to talk about. It's finally here. The wait is over.
Yeah, man.
It finally, I mean, it seemed like it just ended yesterday, but it also seemed like it's been a long time too. So, I y'all know me, man. I can't wait. But
it's Christmas for Jalen right here.
Yeah. So, I want to see the offense, man. And just like everybody, it's like it's like a woman having a child. They just want to see the baby, man. They just want to see the baby. So I just want to see the offense and see what's going on. See what I can steal. Also see what how the passing game look, man. Who's going to take over at running back too? So, But yeah, happy to have some football this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. There's nothing quite like the build-up going into week 1, and excited to get this thing going Saturday against Southern Miss. Obviously, we all know the history with this opponent, but this Kentucky team, the depth they have, Southern Miss, they're entering kind of a pivotal year. We'll talk to their guys in a second. You'll set it up, Vinny, but some of the guys that know the program better than we do. But, they're entering a year with a coach on the hot seat, a lot of new faces on offense, a little hard to scout on that side of the ball. 2 new coordinators. So, big for Kentucky to obviously take care of business. You want to obviously just win the game first and foremost, but you also want to have some style points. You want to be able to get some young guys playing time that you haven't been able to get them necessarily in season openers the last couple of years or early season games. And you also want to stay healthy because it's not like last year where we've talked about it at length on this podcast, but there's no easing into this schedule. You play this game against Southern Miss, and then you got SEC play the next 2 games. You get 1 game with Ohio, and then you go to Ole Miss. So the schedule is brutal, and this has to be, I think, an efficient win for Kentucky Saturday to feel good going into week 2.
For sure. As always, we're brought to y'all courtesy of the Believe Podcast Network. We're streaming live right now on YouTube and Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Believe in Kentucky as well. Got our link tree in the profile. Got all the platforms, Stitcher, TikTok. I'm not talking about Stitcher. TikTok, Apple Podcasts. You can listen, you can watch, follow all the platforms. That way you don't miss an episode. Subscribe, get the 5 stars, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Feel free to do it. We definitely appreciate it. As you mentioned, Aaron, we got a couple guests backstage doing a little crossover preview, getting some Southern Miss perspective. We got 2 gentlemen who are part of the Buzzardry Pod, the only mustard buzzard podcast. We have Milam and Patrick McGee. They cover Southern Miss for the Buzzardry Pod. Let's bring them in right now to get a little Golden Eagles insight. Fellas, appreciate y'all joining us this evening. Appreciate you taking the time, and glad to have y'all, man.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.
So we definitely gonna get to the preview and the how the team stack up and all the insight from Southern Miss last year and all that, but just gotta get a little insight from both y'all. How'd you become Southern Miss fans? Are you Hattiesburg natives? Just your little story, the background, that kind of thing, so we know who we talking to. You know how we do in the South. Got to shoot the breeze a little bit first.
Pat, I'll let you go first, man.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Hattiesburg. I'm a 4th generation Hattiesburg native. Both my parents went to Southern Miss. So, just grew up going to games since I was 6 years old, and was kind of born into it. Kind of, they didn't have a whole lot of a choice, and so that's kind of how I got into it. Just both my parents exposed me to it, and just growing up the games, I got hooked on it. USM went to Nebraska in 2004 and won the season opener there, and I've kind of been hooked ever since. And so yeah, that's kind of my story. And then graduated in 2020. So.
Yeah, I'm also a Southern Miss graduate. A little bit different story than Pat. I was born into it, maybe you could say secondarily. I'm the first generation Golden Eagle, but my dad grew up in Hattiesburg, his side of the family, and he actually played football at Baylor, but he moved back to Mississippi after that and I got involved in Southern Miss again. His dad, my grandfather, taught at Southern Miss for 30 plus years. And so it's in the family, and he kind of brought me along, and I've got a lot of those same memories as Patrick, a lot back when Southern Miss was, kind of had the identity of a giant killer and, was really kind of the golden age of Southern Miss football right when I was starting to get into it. Maybe I was probably on the back end of that a little bit, and we've trying to scrape back to that point ever since. But I'm from Jackson in central Mississippi, the capital for those of you who are not familiar with Mississippi. And as you would imagine, that's mostly Ole Miss and Mississippi State people. And, a lot of the people that we cross paths with, they'll say, oh, my dad or my mom went to Southern, but, I'm an Ole Miss fan or I'm a State fan. And, I got a lot of that indoctrination thrown my way, but it only served to harden me as a Southern Miss fan, for better or for worse. So I'm a Golden Eagle to the day I die, man.
So typically, I don't know about, or you can speak for yourself or Southern Miss Eagles as a whole, do y'all hate Ole Miss and Mississippi State? Are y'all cool with them and just kind of let them do their thing up there? What's the dynamic between USM and State and Ole Miss from y'all's perspective?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, kind of a touchy topic a little bit. I think there's definitely some hatred, some healthy hatred there. Obviously, we both know and love a lot of State and Ole Miss people, but again, going back to growing up in Jackson, I kind of, was belittled a lot as a Southern Miss fan. And that's actually where the name of our podcast came from, was Buzzardry. It's a lot of State and Ole Miss people call us the Muster Buzzards, as, trying to kind of knock us down. And we're trying to kind of, embrace that identity as, the only other Division I school in a state with two SEC schools of the poorest state in the union, kind of that underdog mentality a little bit. And I think because of that, there's certainly some probably not so great feelings towards State and Ole Miss. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to that, just in terms of you look at your typical, your Power Four versus Group of Five in-state dynamics. USM was kind of one of the only schools that has a history of playing their in-state power conference teams. I mean, it was a long time ago, it was in the 80s, and beating them. So, you look at, Alabama, for example, Troy and South Alabama and UAB, they never really played Alabama or Auburn and certainly never beat them. Whereas that was the case in Mississippi, even though it was 30 or 40 years ago at this point. And that's kind of, trickled down to some of the younger fans like Ben and myself. And so it is a little bit different of a dynamic than you see in a lot of these, other southern states where, you have your power conference teams and your Group of Five teams, where there is a little more animosity just because you had that history, even though it was a long time ago. And plus, Mississippi is just such a small state too. So it's a little more, I guess, intimate in terms of, there's only 3 FBS teams, and you look at, Louisiana has, 6 or 7, and Alabama, I think, pretty similar numbers as well. So.
Yeah, man. Appreciate y'all dropping that knowledge, man. A little perspective, and just appreciate that. So, man, AG, Jalen, y'all hit them with questions, and we just open it up and get a little preview going, man.
Yeah, I guess first obviously there's a ton of change, and there's a lot of returning pieces on defense, not as much offense. Just kind of what went wrong. Was it? I know you got Southern Miss went 7-6 last year in 22, won a bowl game. Last year 3-9, not the year probably that was expected. What kind of went wrong? Was it an expected awful season? Was it something that maybe there were injuries and it just boiled up? What went wrong last year to where entering 24, there's a lot of change that had to be made, and Will Hall called like it is probably in the hot seat.
Or you want to answer that, Ben, or you want me to go on that?
I'll let you take it. I'll add to what you have.
Yeah, I mean, so I think after Will Hall was brought in or at the end of 2020, started 2021. Went 3-9, really tough situation. Inherited he's kind of talked about how that 2021 roster wasn't up to what he wanted. In 2022 had a 7-6 season. It was ugly at times, but I think there was a belief within the program that things were moving in the right direction, albeit slowly. And things just, like you said, really fell apart that 2023 season. He brought in a couple quarterback transfers, one from Clemson, one from Houston. Neither of those guys really panned out. The defense completely fell apart. They lost our defense coordinator after the 2022 season, Austin Armstrong, went to Florida to become the defense coordinator there. He internally promoted Dan O'Brien, who, just wasn't the right guy last year. I mean, the defense, I think, in the S&P Plus numbers from ESPN was in the 120s. So it was a combination of, I think, just couldn't find the right guy quarterback and the defense falling apart. There were a lot of injuries. But I think from the Southern Miss perspective, I think the hope is that Hall is still a good coach that knows what he's doing. He just made all of the wrong moves after that 2022 season into the 2023 offseason, where he just hired the wrong DC, didn't relieve play calling duties like he should have. And then just wasn't able to find the right guy quarterback. I think the hope now is he's handed the play calling duties offensively to Chip Long. He hired a new DC, Clay Bignell, who had good defense at the FCS level with Eastern Illinois, and then bring in Tate Rodemaker from Florida State. I think the hope is that those three moves will get the team and the program headed back in the right direction, whereas he just kind of whipped on all three of those things last season.
Yeah, that's a pretty good synopsis. I will add, Pat briefly touched on it, but Will Hall, I think, and he's admitted as much publicly, that he had too much on his plate in terms of the play calling duties. And he's gone back and said, you look at the guys who have won a national championship and called plays is exceedingly rare in college football.
Yep.
And even to have guys who are above average successful, very, very rare. And so he was, I think, just doing too much. I mean, you go back and look at a guy like Larry Fedora, who was very successful at Southern Miss. He just had to get the right coordinators in there. And I mean, endless examples of head coaches who got it going when they got the right coordinators in place. And I think the hope is that Chip Long is sort of that answer offensively. It was funny to hear Jalen talking when we were just getting started. We were backstage. I want to see the baby too, Jalen. We have been waiting for a high quality offense from a Will Hall staff for a long time. That's really why he was hired. He was one of the more respected, I think, offensive coordinators who might become a head coach at the Division I level. Was really, really good at Tulane and also had stops at Memphis and Louisiana. And it just has not been the case. I mean, I think that's the biggest indictment on him to this point is A, big picture, he's not had a quality offense. B, we have not had a quarterback, which is why Tate Rodemaker, we hope is going to be the answer for that. And, really feel like this is the most talented and deep room he has had. It's also the most experienced room. It's not very experienced, but it is the most experienced room that he's had. And so there's a lot, I think, kind of hovering around that switch to Chip Long, a guy who has called plays and been successful at a high level and has done it at multiple stops. He is kind of a bounce back guy who, it didn't work at some points, but he had, fact is he has done it at a high level in certain places. So we're hoping he can take that to Southern Miss and there is kind of a trickle down effect. And the train starts rolling in the right direction.
What you got, Jay? A question?
Yeah, I don't have too much, man. I've been to Southern Miss once. I know a little bit about the program. My center from high school, Lance Shuford, played at Southern Miss, and he was a long snapper there. But I remember going on the visit there, and I liked the place and whatnot. But you always they always seemed like they had good players come through. Usually, right, a place like Southern Miss, you're kind of right in the heart of a pretty good recruiting area. You got Louisiana not far away. You got Alabama right here. You're in Mississippi. Arkansas, Texas, whatever. So you can get players, but I always wondered. My question was wondering also what Aaron asked is kind of how's that dynamic between, you know, Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Southern Miss. How, you know, what's that like? But obviously that question got answered. So I don't really have too much, man. I'm just, to be honest with you, I'm just ready to see the game on Saturday.
Right. Yeah, you and me both. But in terms of recruiting, I mean,
let's cut straight to it, man. Like,
yeah, hey, I'm all about it. We kick it off right now.
Yeah, let's get the ball kicked off. You know, and let's see what happens. But I'm excited, man. You know, see how it go down. I know, you know, obviously Southern Miss is a group of 5. I ended up finishing my last 2 years of college at a FCS school, and I just remember going back and we played Minnesota, we played Northwestern. You know, going back into those you know, those Power 5 school stadiums, and you know how exciting it is, and you know everybody's trying to talk about the David Goliath thing, and so we'll see. I mean, you know, like I said, I'm just ready to see some good football. That's all I really got.
Yeah, good stuff. So, realistically, what are your expectations? You know, a lot of things to fix. Will Hall's looking at, well, I've learned from my mistakes. So you guys realize where you are coming off 3-9. What do you hope to see, you know, Saturday short term, season wide long term, to say, hey, we're heading in the right direction. If we can do this, this, and this, or we can show improvement here, here, and here. Just what are you guys kind of looking for yourself, and then maybe the fan base and the AD, you know, what do y'all want to see from the Eagles this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the short answer is get to a bowl game. You know, obviously you did that in 2022, but I think a lot of that goodwill and momentum is sort of been eroded after last year and the way that last year unfolded. You know, we talked when we did our season predictions. One of our other guys that joins us periodically, we all had 6-6. And so I think that's sort of the general consensus, is that you'll be on that 5-6 win mark edge. And I mean, if you can come out some way, somehow with a winning season, I think people will be thrilled. A big part of it, and, you know, kind of the longer end of the answer, is how does the offense look from game 1 to game 12 to hopefully game 13, because again, that has been the big concern under Will Hall. I mean, in 2022, what was it last year, Pat, that you had Jake Smithhard and everybody, you know,
that was 21.
Okay, so 21. So that was, yeah. So year 1 under Will Hall, and this is kind of carried forth. I mean, you had 15 different guys take snaps at quarterback and attempt to pass. And some of those were Wildcat guys, right? Maybe 4 of them, like Frank Gore Jr. had, you know, 20 plus pass attempts. That was all over college football Twitter. Ended up being our best quarterback really in the last 3 years, which is kind of hilarious and sad at the same time.
That's not
but also, yeah, exactly. It's really not. I think, you know, depending on how that quarterback situation shakes out has a whole lot to do with how people feel about this season. If you go 6-6, 7-6, and you have a high quality, or at least competent quarterback from game 1 to the bowl game, and the offense is competitive against good competition, it's not a gimmicky offense where you're running Wildcat, you know, 80% of the time and things like that, I think people will feel good, and Will Hall will kind of get back into the good graces of the fan base, but they've got work to do. And so, again, in summation, good offense in a bowl game, I'm taking that all day long.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I guess, in the short term, I think we kind of talked about it on our podcast, but I think in the short term, kind of looking, I guess, for some kind of competency in the passing game, like Ben was saying. I think the hope is, you know, you don't expect, you know, in this game to score 50 points and 500 yards or whatever, but I think if you can string a couple touchdown drives together in non-garbage time, and then, you know, kind of avoid a bunch of 3 and outs outside of those, to where you can score maybe, you know, 2, you know, maybe if you know, play well, you score 3 non-garbage time touchdowns, and it's like a 38-20 type game, or a, you know, like a 35-16 type game, where you cover and plus a touchdown. I think under 20 points, I think is kind of what the short term. I think you look at it this game where I think people say, okay, the less a step in the right direction from last year when you were going to Florida State and losing 66-13. I think in the long term, I think bowl eligibility at a minimum. I think most fans would want to see 7 wins, maybe 8. I think Hall would be back at 6. We kind of talked about this on our podcast. There is support from the AD and from a lot of the boosters. Hall's done a really good job and really kind of spent the whole offseason, honestly, of rallying the NIL around USM to kind of position USM as one of the best G5s in terms of NIL. So I think there is some optimism with that. But again, if those NIL efforts don't translate to the field, I mean, they're not worth a whole lot. So I think 7-8 wins, I think, is the realistic hope from the fan base. I think we'll be back at 6 wins. But I think for me personally, I think if you can get to 7-5 and especially 8-4, I think that would be seen as a step.
Okay, so so it's a long road, and hopefully for y'all, he can get it turned around and show what he needs to show that things are headed the right direction for sure. I got to switch it up too, just because you mentioned y'all played Florida State last year. We didn't even get week 0 out of our mouth, and Georgia Tech has already beaten those same Seminoles over there in Ireland, man.
I was pulling real hard for the Yellow Jackets. Let me tell you.
I think all of America was after all the crying that came out of there.
We're worried Florida State's going to try to take Tate Rodemaker back if he plays well this week.
Yeah, we are. That was a question we got on the podcast last week. Do you think Florida State's going to repossess Tate Rodemaker?
Why don't we go there with Rodemaker? How did they? I obviously didn't follow his recruitment too closely, but was that even a battle? Was Southern Miss always kind of just the school for him? And what is the vibe with him? Obviously, only one start last year, did win at Florida, they had to manage the game, which makes sense, given the short notice, knowing he was going to be the starter. What was kind of the feeling when they were able to go out and get a guy that honestly became a pretty big household name, given all the stuff that was going on with Florida State?
Yeah, I mean, it really happened like within a 36-hour time frame, where I think it was kind of reported just as a rumor. It wasn't even like on Twitter or in any news articles. Like maybe Friday night that he was on campus visiting, and everybody was like, "Oh, we have a shot at Tate Rodemaker. This is, we might finally get the quarterback." And then I think it was that Saturday evening. It was right after USM beat James Madison in basketball, which was a big win at the time because James and Madison, they were undefeated.
Yeah, had a great year.
So it was a really good day. It was a really good day for USM athletics that day. But then, I think it was reported that night that Rodemaker had committed. And I mean, there was a lot of excitement. I mean, getting a guy that has played at a big program. I mean, obviously he didn't have a ton of experience under his belt, but he has some. I mean, it was seen as a big get just because, we talked about the guys that were brought in previously last year. Billy Wiles from Clemson, who was a walk-on, had barely. I mean, I think he had came in a game against like Charlotte when it was 50-point blowout, and then had barely really played at all. And Holman Edwards from Houston, who I don't know if he had even seen a snap at Houston. So I think Rodemaker having at least some experience, some pedigree, gives people, more hope than years past that the quarterback room is going to be, much improved, or the quarterback position is going to be much improved over, what we've seen with Hall so far.
Hey, Rodemaker's the kid from Valdosta, right? Coach's kid.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I remember him. Yeah, I definitely remember him.
Yeah, would have started the ACC championship game for him for the concussion, though.
Yeah.
That's right. Just to have a guy who you can go to YouTube and type in Tate Rodemaker highlights and something
comes up.
I mean, that's
hey, you know
nice
what?
Change.
You know what? Obviously, he has more highlights than Brock Vandegrift. I mean, Brock has played a little bit, but it's mostly when George is annihilating people. So he's actually the most by one game is the most experienced starter that'll take the field set.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, Hall has gone after, and you never know with recruiting rumors, but we've been relatively close to some bigger name quarterback transfers. Miles Brennan was the one that was,
right.
Everybody was texting in the group chat at Miles Brennan's on campus, and he's with Will Hall and he's coming to Southern Miss. And from what we know, he actually was on campus, and Brian Kelly kind of ripped him back to LSU at the last second. Ended up not even playing. I think there's a little bit of a feeling of a curse on the quarterback position at Southern Miss because of stuff like that. And, there were rumors of John Rice Plumlee, who's a local guy who was at Ole Miss and ended up going to UCF. Luke Altmaier, who was at Ole Miss, was on campus too. And so I feel like you've kind of missed with some of those higher profile transfers and feel like you hit on one. At least on paper, he should be the answer at quarterback. And I think we also feel better about the position because you have guys behind him like Ethan Crawford, who's a true sophomore and started against Mississippi State last year. Kind of came on at the end of the year and was good. Ended up having some injuries where he didn't start the final games. But, there's actually some depth there that has experience, and we also feel good about some of the younger guys on the roster too behind them. And I think I'll just side note, I think you'll see Ethan Crawford just a really, really good athlete, either at the quarterback position or lined up somewhere else on offense, just to show a wrinkle against, obviously really high quality Kentucky front seven to try to keep them on their heels a little bit. And so again, it's, on paper, you should be much, much better. But we also said that last year, so we'll see.
You mentioned that y'all had the kid coming over from Clemson. On that note, I just want to know, does Will Hall still take calls at his calling show? I just want to know.
No, it was actually funny. One of our buddies, a guy named Corey Gunkel on Twitter, had quote tweeted that, and because years ago when Southern Miss had Ellis Johnson, who went 0-12. He took over a 12-2 team, went 0-12, and there was a guy named James from Beaumont that called in one day during that 0-12 season and said, hey, can you turn in your on behalf of the Southern Miss Nation, turn in your resignation or something to that effect. And since that call-in show, there has not been any live call-ins to the Southern Miss call-in show anymore. So that was 2012. So it's been over a decade. So we were kind of trendsetters in that.
Yeah. And James from Beaumont was not the only one to have a call like that. They shut it down pretty quick.
Okay. So Tyler from Spartanburg was just copying y'all here. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, basically.
All right. Well, I still think, we done talked about Dabo on here before, and that's just thin skin, man. Come on. Go ahead, Jay. I see you about to.
Yeah, Dabo has been kind of, rewriting his legacy the past 3 or 4 years or whatever, man.
Maybe if you pay him $12 million a year instead of 11, they'll start answering.
Yeah, man. What's up with him, man? At the end of the day,
it's ridiculous.
Just resign, man, and let somebody else do it. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to get, you don't want transfers, and you're kind of old school in a lot of ways, which I'm fine with that. But nowadays it takes what it takes. He's pretty much saying that he's okay with being, middle of the road ACC team, and just doing that thing. But some of the stuff he say, man, it was like, okay, dude, we get it. You know what I mean? Like, we get it. And I like Dabo as a coach. I think he's a great coach. But at the same time, you got to get with the program or get rolled over. And it's looking like that's happening now. I say that they may come out and beat Georgia, but who knows? I just think some of his antics, man, is like uncalled for. Like, you don't have to say it. Like, we heard it, for the 100th time. Like, just let it go. it's a new day and age. Kids want money. Kids are transferring. It is what it is, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, move on. It's almost like I'm sure he talks about that every day in the office and complains about how kids want to transfer all the time. Like, it is what it is. Like, get with the program or don't, and get passed by. So I don't know. Dabo, I don't know what's up with Dabo, man.
Yeah, that was just another one on the list for sure. But that was just the latest. So it is what it is, like y'all said. I gotta ask a question. This is kind of before our time, but y'all are from Mississippi, and I'm sure you've heard, what I'm about to ask. But just the fact, and I haven't researched other states, but to me, Mississippi, from the standpoint of NFL Pro Football Hall of Famers that have not attended the big state schools. I mean, I'm talking, Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Brett Favre, Marcus Dupree, Jason Campbell. None of these guys go to Ole Miss or Mississippi State. You guys got Brett Favre there in the golden age of Southern Miss that you were talking about earlier. How did the big schools miss on so many guys? I don't know if Mississippi's got the biggest ratio of Hall of Famers per state to not go to the big schools, but to me, y'all, that's always noteworthy. We had Jason Campbell on here last time Kentucky played Auburn. Going to try to get him again when we play Auburn here in a few weeks, but it's crazy how much talent y'all have produced that did not go to Oxford or Starkville.
You get that, Ben?
Yeah, most NFL players per capita of any state in the U.S. And I don't think a lot of people realize that there is just a ton of talent in Mississippi. And to go back to, Pat, was talking about the 80s and early 90s, late 70s ish, when Southern Miss and Mississippi State and Ole Miss were kind of on even footing. And, in some of those years in the 80s, Southern Miss was out recruiting Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Southern Miss was at one point the largest university in the state. And again, year in, year out, you were either competing with or beating Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And so obviously the perception has flipped and it's completely different now. But in that day and age, we had Brett Favre coming through and Ray Guy. We have 2 NFL Hall of Famers. Mississippi State has
that's right
0. Ole Miss actually just had their first inducted in Patrick Willis. But we're still above one there.
In fairness, so Mississippi State's got one coming in Chris Jones too.
Yep. Yeah, you're probably right. And obviously they've, got a lot of really good NFL players.
Yeah,
I think especially Mississippi State currently in the league. But yeah, it was a different time back then. And, you didn't have these national recruiting services, or you couldn't log on to Huddle and, just send a link to somebody, stuff like that. There were a lot more diamonds in the rough. And that's when Southern Miss really, really thrived.
Yeah. I think a lot of that was what Ben was saying about just the internet is kind of taken away the diamond in the rough, where used to be you could, especially, a state like Mississippi, where again, rural state, sometimes those guys can hide. You got a lot of raw talent. And, I think that's kind of why you saw, Walter Payton went to Jackson State, Jerry Rice went to Mississippi Valley, Favre went to USM and that kind of thing. And I think now with the internet, it's almost, everybody from like the 5-star quarterback and Texas has film is that they have almost as much film as like a guy punting in a 8-man football in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi. So it's kind of made it to where it's harder to hide. And I think also, you kind of look at, you talked about the Hall of Famers, but I think, a lot of talent will go to, because, you have LSU and Alabama. The way Mississippi geography works, LSU and Alabama are just as close to a lot of the people in the state as Ole Miss and State are. And, obviously those programs have been dominant in the 21st century. So I think that's why you see a lot of, the top players leave. But yeah, for sure, the Paytons and Rices and Favres, and then, probably miss. I think Jackson State has 2, or they definitely have 2 Hall of Famers. Can't remember the other one. I think, but yeah, there's been a lot of great players that have come through the state. But I think, yeah, the Huddle and 247 and Rivals, and that's kind of made it a lot harder to hide, than it was, 34 years ago.
Yeah. and I meant to mention at the beginning, and I'm not trying to bring it down, but condolences to you guys for, MJ Daniels passing. And I know that was a difficult thing to deal with. And I'm sure there's a big outpouring from everybody in college football, but sorry you guys are going to dedicate the season to him. And I could not have y'all on here and not say that as well.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I mean, it was obviously that's something you never want to deal with. And, we had, what was that, Pat? Back, was that 2009, 2010?
10.
Or was that 2011? We had some players shot. Was it 2010? Okay.
Yeah.
It was just a really unfortunate thing. And by all accounts, I didn't know him personally, but MJ Daniels was just a fantastic kid in every sense of the word. And he was an excellent football player. And, we don't, obviously the loss of MJ Daniels has a lot more to do with just life in general and just the tragedy of that situation. But I mean, that's a huge loss to not have him on the back end of the defense. That's one of the things that we're really concerned about, and not having MJ there, just his presence at the locker room, but also his talent on the field is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah. So there's no smooth transition or anything like it, but I'm sure the outpouring from everywhere, other schools and everything was big at that time. So definitely wanted to mention that as well here. Aaron, you and I kind of skirted it last week. We were talking about Southern Miss, and we talked about our history with Southern Miss. This will be the third time we played you guys in a decade.
That's right.
We there was no reason for us to bring up what happened when y'all came to Lexington the last time, but since y'all are here,
that's been brought up a lot by the coaching staff this week, by the way.
Yeah,
a lot.
We'll talk about it all day if y'all want to.
I'm gonna dive in since y'all are here. Y'all had a good night, 41-35. So where were y'all? Were y'all in Lexington? Were y'all in Hattiesburg? Where were you all when Southern Miss came to Lexington and not Kentucky off?
Yeah, I was there. Go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ben. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
that was my sophomore year of college. So I was there. I went to pretty much, the big away games. Went to Kentucky and Tennessee and Auburn and any of those type games I could. That was year one under Jay Hopson. We were coming off of a conference title game appearance, and so hopes were high. And then after halftime, it was 35-10. For those of you who have kind of scrubbed your memory of that, to remind you, and you outscored Kentucky 34-0 in the second half, which is remarkable. And you look at this matchup and kind of comparing the two, that's kind of been part of the conversation is, okay, that's obviously, that's the formula to get it done in that game. How did that game go? And how do you kind of carry that forth into this game or play a similar type game? Southern Miss really controlled the line of scrimmage in that second half. And, especially up front, a lot of people, talk about NFL talent. Quarterback Nick Mullins, still playing in the NFL. Ito Smith at running back, played 4 years in the NFL, had 2 NFL offensive linemen. And, probably don't have 2 NFL offensive linemen. I don't know if you have 2 NFL guys in the backfield. But in that 2016 game, it was really just it started up front. That's always how it happens. Pat mentioned the fact that you have to, in this game, if you're going to have a shot, at least to make it interesting in the fourth quarter, you're going to have to string some long drives together. You're going to have to be able to run the ball. That's exactly what happened in 2016. And the question is, can you replicate that? I don't know. But I will say that second half was a whole lot of fun. That was my first time to Lexington, and I'm not going to get a chance to go this year. Pat will be there in Lexington this weekend. But, yeah, good memory for sure.
Yeah, for me. So that was my freshman year at USM. Wasn't able to make it. It's kind of one of my big regrets. But I remember it was once they got to 35-10, I was watching it at my parents' house, and I just walked out. I just went on a walk. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm not watching it anymore. And then immediately after that, Mullins threw a pretty long touchdown to make it like 35-17. And by the time I got back in the house, it was almost like 35-31. And then, obviously watched the rest of it from there. But yeah, I mean, that was, I think one of the crazier games in USM history, just because that was our first SEC win since 2000. And there was a good deal of momentum after that 2015 conference championship season, a little bit of uncertainty with the coaching staff. And yeah, I mean, that was, USM's really been on hard times these last 12 years since Larry Fedora left. But I think you look at that 2016 Kentucky game, as well as the 2022 game against Tulane. We won there the year they won the Cotton Bowl against USC. So those are kind of the two high marks that, really wins that we hang our hat on since then. But yeah, I mean, people that went to Lexington and the USM fans that went to Lexington 2016, they say that, I mean, obviously the outcome, the game helped, but they said they had a great time. The people were great. And it's, one of the road trips that they really enjoyed the most. And I think that's a big reason why, we were trying to get you guys on the schedule again for this year, because we were originally supposed to be playing at Ohio State, and it was a late switch. And I think a lot
Kentucky,
of the
go ahead. Sorry, I'll let you finish there.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think a lot of the fans, they really enjoyed the Bourbon Trail or whatever. And I know this around Lexington. I'm not a drinker, but I know a lot of the boosters like that, and they can make a big donor trip out of it. So I think there was a lot of excitement just kind of going back to that 2016 game, but having an opportunity to come up there again. So I'm looking forward to getting up there. I've never been to Lexington. The only part of Kentucky I've been to is Bowling Green. We played WKU in the 15 CUSA title. So.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Yeah, that is probably part of the scheduling, but also Kentucky, this game, they were supposed to not only play Akron, but go there.
Right.
They did not want to go to Akron. They wanted to play at home, which is understandable.
I'm not sure we wanted to play Ohio State.
That's a fair point. I think honestly, Kentucky from a matchup standpoint probably got the toughest draw, right? But they don't have to go to Akron, so there's that.
I know lots too has been made about the USM's budget, athletic budget is how it was less than like Kentucky's just TV deal. Is there
way less?
Yeah. So is there plans in place to kind of boost things back up? What's the AD trying to do to kind of, like you guys mentioned, you've been some hard times. What's the plan, I guess, that's been implemented for that?
Yeah. I mean, USM athletics is kind of like the Oakland A's in Moneyball a little bit. You got to try to get creative in terms of making do with the budget you have. But I will say this: I think it is a little bit overblown. I mean, obviously there are restrictions and limitations because of the budget, but they've gotten their athletic budget up to $30 million. And if you look at the coaching salaries or some of the coaching salaries in terms of just not only head coaching but assistant, USM is very competitive within that aspect of it. I think at least upper half of the Sun Belt in that. So a lot of these Sun Belt schools, like GMU, ODU, Coastal Carolina, they are able to accumulate a lot of funds through student fees. USM is kind of limited in that based on some state laws and that kind of thing. But I think if you just look at coaching budget and investment in the football program, they're pretty competitive within the Sun Belt. But yeah, I mean, I think if you just pulled up the USA Today budget database or whatever it is, I mean, they'd be 13 out of 14. The only school that would be below would be Louisiana Monroe. So yeah, I mean, the budget is always one of the bigger issues at USM, but I think at this point, I don't think it's a huge reason why the football program has struggled. I think at this point, it's just hopefully Hall's the right guy, and that, I mean, and then you also have the NIL aspect where they've done well, but yeah, I don't think. I mean, it's not dire like a ULM or a Kent State, even though they are a little bit behind, most of the Sun Belt.
Gotcha. So tell everybody when you guys record and how they can find the podcast. Tell them a little about the pod as well.
Yeah, on Twitter at Buzzardry Pod. We record We record on Sunday nights. We've been trying to – usually we put out Monday mornings, but we've actually gone to a new recording platform. Or we're trying to do live stream like y'all do. I don't know if it'll be quite as professional, but typically put out Monday mornings, and really that's the main thing. It's funny. Me and Pat started this 4 years ago, Pat, 3 years ago?
2021, before 2021 football season.
So first year was beginning of football season of 2021, and I'm kind of de facto the guy that does, a lot of the social media stuff, and I have these grand plans. In our outro, it says follow our Facebook at Buzzardry Pod. We don't have a Facebook. It's just Twitter.
I was looking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to fix that at some point. But main thing is Twitter at Buzzardry Pod, and planning on going live on Sunday evenings, hopefully sometime in the near future.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, we appreciate y'all coming on and giving your background and how you guys were, multi-generation USM fans, indulging us in the joy y'all hadn't beaten us last time you were in Lexington. Your outlook for this season and what Will Hall's got to do to stay around Hattiesburg for a little bit longer, and objective look at hopefully a bowl game and 6-6 and going on from there. So appreciate you guys, Ben and Patrick, for taking the time, responding to a email or text somebody you didn't even know, and y'all still said, hey, we'll hop on here. So definitely appreciate it. Safe travels to Lexington, Patrick, since you're the one heading up this time. And
thank you.
I think BBN will treat you good. We
bring a poncho. There's some rain coming.
Yeah, now it does look like the temperature is going to be in the 80s, which
it'll be
living
nice.
here. And I'm in Mobile, and it's been mid 90s, pretty much for several months. So getting into some 80-degree temperatures, that's going to feel pretty nice. So
yeah, it's been in the hundreds all week. So got some luck that we're getting a nice little cold front coming in for this game here.
That's it.
Fellas, we appreciate y'all having us. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
Thank
man.
y'all.
Y'all have a good one.
So much. Enjoyed it. Y'all have a good rest of the evening, and we'll see you Saturday. Hope the scoreboard. We can't. It is what it is. We're on different sides.
You can be honest. It's okay.
Yeah.
We hope we blow y'all out too.
There you go.
But thanks so much, y'all, and we'll have to check you out. Everybody, Buzzardry Pod, y'all check them out, and we appreciate y'all hopping on here tonight with us.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So we got Ben, Milam, and Patrick McGee, Buzzardry Pod, previewing Southern Miss and UK. So good to get that perspective from those guys, man. We appreciate them taking the time to do it. So Jay, man, you just want to see some games. You want to see the offense. Just that's it, man.
I'm done with it. I'm done with talking, man. I just want I just want to see the game. I've been hearing a lot of good things. I'm sure as y'all have as well. From both sides of the ball. So sounds like to me that it should be a good year in Lexington. So just looking forward to it, man, and seeing what happens. Like I said, I don't care if they were playing. I don't care if they were playing. Whatever that. Tate's Creek. It don't matter to me. I just want to see some good football, man. I just want to see some football in general.
Yes.
So we'll see. Like I said, I think it'll be a good year. I'm anxious to kind of see what shakes out at the running back position.
Yeah, definitely.
That's going to be interesting. They don't really have a quote-unquote bell cow as of now. We'll see if Chip Trainum, kind of develop and eventually at some point be that guy. Maybe it's Demi. Who knows? So I think it'll be probably running back by committee early, like we talked about before. But I'm also excited to see, very deep receiver room. Stoops was talking about how he feels really good about the quarterback room, how they're 4 deep at quarterback. And he feels like, Bo Allen and those guys kind of give him some comfort, a veteran guy who knows the offense and has been in multiple systems. what's the kid? The number 2 guy. What's his name?
Limestad, Gavin Limestad.
Yeah, I'm hearing really, really good things about him. Obviously, Cutter Boley is eventually going to be pretty good. Everybody thinks so. We'll see how that goes, but we'll see. At the end of the day, they need their 5-star quarterback coming out of high school to be a 5-star for them. For this team to go where they need to go this year. So excited to see what happens. Excited to see how that D-line group continues to develop and be probably a strength on their team, if not the strength, on their team. So we'll see.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And look, this game, like I said, I think it is really important. And all respect to Southern Miss, and I do think they're a better football team, at least on paper, than they were a year ago when they were 3-9. But you got to take care of business, and I think do so pretty promptly here. I think something that's hurt Kentucky the last 2 seasons is not being able to get some depth guys some run early in the year, and then they end up having to play later because injuries inevitably pop up, and maybe they're not ready for that moment. And it hurts their development not only in the present year, but in future years. So I think it's really important for Kentucky to, flex their muscle a little bit. 2018, they had a little bit of a slow start in that week 1 game against CMU. They pulled away in the second half, but if you remember 2021, they jumped all over and did what they needed to do against ULM, and it kind of propelled the momentum for the rest of the year. So I think it's really important to just flex, be dominant, take care of business, move on, and get ready, for a huge, huge game against South Carolina that I think it's safe to say, will make or break the season. That early. So that's kind of where I'm at with all of it. I just think just take care of business, jump all over them, do what you're supposed to do, and on to South Carolina.
That's a good point about getting some depth, some second, third string guys some run in the second half. That's a good point about how.
Yeah, and it's something I know. Obviously, they talk about every year, and they know what it needs to be done, but you got to go do it. You got to go do it, and I think that they're obviously capable. I think they're the better team. You look over at Southern Miss, and just a couple of things, to rattle off quickly that we didn't get to with the guys, which is fine. Offensively, they're going to start 2 receivers. Both are SEC transfers in Danish Jackson, Larry Simmons. Neither of them caught a pass last year. They have a slot guy who was productive last year in Ty Mims. Their tight ends last year combined for 4 catches. There's not much on that offense. And, Rodemaker had a nice game, obviously. Again, well, I wouldn't even say that. He had a 48% completion percentage, but he did, lead them to a win at Florida. You can't discredit that. Their offensive line is really inexperienced. It's just, this should be a game the defense holds them to 14 points max. And offensively, Southern Miss does have some experience up front, but like the guys were telling us, the back end is a problem. Barryon Brown, Dane Key have that junior year jump you're expecting. It shouldn't be an issue there either. So just really important to take care of business in this one. Get some, not even like what I just said there about getting guys to run, but also to just to get some confidence, going into week 2 as well, because confidence is everything in this game.
For sure. Josh saying can't wait to be there Saturday, hoping the O-line is improved, hoping Brock doesn't have to run for his life. So yeah, that would definitely be
that would be the if he's running for his life, then the season's not going to go the way Kentucky wanted it to go. So
I don't think he'll be running for his life, man.
No, I don't either. I'm actually pretty confident that this is going to be a better defensive line. Excuse me, defensive line, yeah, too. But I think it's going to be a better offensive line. I really do. I would be pretty darn surprised, to be honest with you, if it isn't. There's just too much experience, I think, for it to be a total bust.
Yeah, and I also think schematically it's hard to, teams get pressure on the quarterback when they're in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when the offensive line is not very good, but also when they know that he's going to be in that spot in the pocket. I think this offense is from videos I've seen and from the film I've watched of Bush Hamden's offense last year, they get the quarterback off his spot by design, because it distorts the defense. It keeps the defensive coordinator hesitant to sit in certain pressures and keeps those defensive players, those D linemen and linebackers, guessing on where the quarterback is going to be. If you can keep them guessing, if you can speed their mind up, you can slow their feet down. If you can cause them to think a lot, you can slow their feet down, which will in turn help the protection, which in turn helps the quarterback, which in turn is going to help the passing game and receivers in general. So I think they do enough on offense as far as moving the guy to, to keep defensive coordinators from really zoning in and locking in on where he's going to be.
If I'm putting you on the spot or not, Aaron and I last week did our win-loss predictions. So where did you have them, Jay? For
we both. I think we to give what's sort of looking for context. I think we both went 8-4. Actually, we had the same exact game for game.
No variation at all.
Zero variation. Literally no variation. Which is
that's tough, man.
It is.
I got them beating Southern Miss. I got them beating South Carolina.
Yep.
The Georgia one. I mean, that's the one that's tough, right? I mean, I don't know. Hopefully they can pull an upset, but you know how that goes. That's gonna be a tough one. Ohio got to beat Ohio. Ole Miss is gonna be a tough one. I think they could beat Ole Miss though.
I think they can. I just don't know if they will.
I don't know if they will, but that's a toss up to me. I think they waxed Vanderbilt. I think they absolutely waxed Florida too. I think they beat Florida. Auburn is tricky, man. I'm always, Auburn is always tough. They always play good, pretty tough defense. I think Hugh Freeze got another year at Auburn. He got some more players in there. I don't know about that game, man.
That's the biggest, I think, toss up of the season right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's going to be a tough one. Tennessee game, man. And guys, forgive me, but I just don't know. And look, Stoops is a great defensive mind. Brad White is a great defensive mind. But every time I watch that offense against Kentucky's defense, not only are they open, they're wide open. And it's the same concepts where they're getting wide open. And the adjustments haven't been made for some reason with that offense. And I don't understand it. But hey, I just think that Heupel was a great coach, and he kind of got their number. I think Kentucky can win that game. I think Kentucky offense has to score 40 points though. I think their offense has to score. I mean, and according to the media, I guess Tennessee has one of the greatest D lines in the country this year. So
they do. They have two first rounders or something. Maybe the number one pick. Yep.
Yeah, with Pierce and
Omari Thomas. Yep.
Yeah. So I think Kentucky offense is going to have to score points, a lot of points. And maybe it's the year that Kentucky defense slows them down. I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, they slowed them down a little bit last year, I guess. But it's just that offense is tough, man, for anybody really. Yeah. But Murray State, they'll beat Murray State. Texas, I don't know about that one. Texas is loaded. It is what it is. It just is what it is. The Georgia and Texas game, those games are what they are. You hope to go in there and compete and stay close until the end, and maybe you can get it go your way. But just top to bottom, the coaching staffs along with the rosters. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's just tough. Louisville, I think they beat Louisville at home this year. I think, playing on Kroger Field, I think they beat Louisville. And I don't think Louisville will be as good as they were last year this year. So technically I got them losing 1, 2, 3 games right now for sure. Like I said, the Auburn game for me, man, it's a tough one. And that Auburn game is a tough one for me. I think even if they pull the upset against Tennessee. For some reason, I'm just not trusting that Auburn game. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Like it's just, I don't know. I got to see it. That's a toss up. But I think, if eventually they got to, kind of get over the hump against Tennessee in that offense. And I think maybe this is the year to do it. This is the team to do it. It's going to be a very high scoring game. If they do it, it will not be a low scoring game.
Wow.
That's what I got. So I got them at worst. I got them at worst losing 4 games, at best being 9-3.
Okay.
At best being 9-3. So, like I said, Georgia and Texas definitely are what they are. I mean, I just think, you're talking about 2 teams that can win it all this year. It's tough.
Yep. And one other thing I was going to ask you too, I knew I was going to ask you when you're back on. We're hearing a lot about Brock Vandegrift that he takes what the defense gives him. He's not trying to force things, and so just from you coming out of high school, coming into college, what type of a quarterback were you? Were you a take what the defense gives you? Were you I trust my arm to get through any kind of window guy? Or were you, check it down, because you got the gunslingers, you got Captain Check Down types, you got those somewhere in the middle. So what type of guy were you, and did you change what type of quarterback you were from when you first became a college quarterback to the end of your career?
Yeah, I definitely was somewhere in the middle. I wasn't necessarily a gunslinger. I'm not saying I didn't have a strong enough arm to get it down there, but I wasn't necessarily like a reckless gunslinger or whatnot. I remember being in high school and checking the ball down to a running back. And usually I always tell defensive coaches in high school that the ball is never thrown from 0 to 5 or 6 yards in between the guards, both guards. It's hardly ever thrown there. So don't even worry about covering it. And if they do throw it, rally and go make the tackle. But I remember being a sophomore and even sophomore and junior in high school and throwing those checkdowns in big games. I remember doing that. So I've always had a pretty good eye for that, I guess. So I feel like I was somewhere in the middle, man. As I got older, though, when I went to Eastern, I got more aggressive. And I think part of that was just confidence. Part of that, I was finally in my eyes, I was in a system that, it really catered to my strengths. We had a really good offensive coordinator. I absolutely loved the system. It was a great system. That's where I kind of developed my foundation of how I like to call offense and how I like to coach for the most part, especially early on in my coaching career. But really great system. Our offensive coordinator was known for, taking quarterbacks and especially transfer quarterbacks on the FCS level, and they're getting big numbers with them. It's a really good system. So I became more aggressive because his offense was more aggressive. Truth be told, and I'm being honest, like at Kentucky, we were outmatched, a lot of the games. So there wasn't much aggressiveness going on. There wasn't much holding the ball in the pocket. We weren't half rolling. For whatever reason, we weren't really half rolling and changing the launch point as much, for whatever reason. But, we were doing all of that at Eastern. We were half rolling, we were full rolling, we were sprint out, we were naked, we were boot, we were throwing from the pocket. I could show you guys one of our call sheets. Maybe one day I'll do that on here. And we were really nerding out. And, it's like it was NFL playbook, man, like legit, a whole bunch of plays in a game plan. I'm talking like over 100 plays, 150 plays that we can run with variations. So it was a lot of stuff, but it was such a player-friendly offense. He did a good job game planning, so I was more comfortable in that offense. I had players around me that could make plays in that offense. Not that I didn't have that at Kentucky, but relative to the competition that we were playing, we had good players. And, I would throw the ball. I would throw more 50-50 balls in that offense. And I would take more chances. I would throw routes that I probably would never throw at Kentucky, if I'm being honest, because I trusted our guys against their guys. And also, truth be told, man, it was just we had a culture at Eastern. I'm gonna just be honest. We had a culture at Eastern where we took the field like we were gonna win every Saturday, and that wasn't the case at Kentucky. Obviously, the record showed that, and we were getting back to what I was used to, how I grew up. Like we always took the field like we were gonna win, and we didn't win every game. We made the playoffs my senior year. And we lost in the conference championship my junior year or whatever to Jacksonville State. But we always took the field like we were going to win. Because I went to a program who had just won 2 conference championships before with Jimmy Garoppolo. So
right.
Our players were used to, they were winners. They were used to winning. And it was refreshing to be back in that, that energy, because when I was in high school, man, I went to a high school where we were number 1 in the country my senior year in high school. So we were like losing a game was like a big deal. Like losing one game was a huge deal. So, I was just comfortable there, man. I had, it was a different feeling, and it goes back to saying when you're winning, things seem to be going well, man. When you're losing, everything is going wrong. So that's kind of how it was at Kentucky. Nothing seemed right because we were losing. And we were 2-12, and that's, the worst football I've played in my life in the 2 years at Kentucky, to be honest. However, I did learn a lot, though. I did, meet some people that I'll forever love and cherish. But it's just on the gridiron, on the football field on Saturdays, we just didn't get it done. We were just subpar. So, but yeah, just to answer the question, I definitely was more of I turned into more of a gunslinger when I got to Eastern. I was really cautious at Kentucky for a lot of reasons. So, I was kind of right there in the middle, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just knew I wanted to see where you were, just based off what we've been hearing about Brock and how he's, not been making a whole lot of mistakes, kind of just taking what's there from what we've been hearing, Aaron, and so we'll see how that translates to his first start. And
excited to see it, man.
Mm-hmm. It's not garbage time when he's up by 40. It's actually it's his baby from the jump, so that'll be an adjustment. But it's here. Time to quit talking, like Jalen said. Let's Saturday get here.
I know, man. Let's go. Roll it out. And I'm excited to see the lights and all that. I guess the 8:00 start's brutal. It's brutal. Like 7:30 was brutal enough. 8 is brutal, and that's not even just a go to bed thing. It's like Jalen said, man. Like week 1. The excitement is through the roof. And it is for us too. I mean, look, we're as media, we want to see exactly what we're going to be covering this year, if the things we've been hearing are true or not, that type of thing. And you want week 1 for me. I always enjoy when week 1's a nooner and you just you get on with it. But there are a lot of good games during the day. That is the one. Bright side, get to watch some of Clemson. Georgia, or really watch all of it, watch the majority of Florida and Miami. But I wish it wasn't at 8:00, man. I wish we were rolling it out at noon and seeing what we got in this Kentucky team. And then, again, getting ready for Carolina.
Yeah. Yep. But it will finally get to Saturday night. Almost there. So we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a late night, like you said, AG, 11 whatever when it's over. And
so late.
Hope to be back again talking about 1-0, getting on to South Carolina. If Jalen, you and I schedule work out, which I do a little recap or something, it might be a night owl after the game. Hop on here quick, 15, 20 minutes to talk about what we just saw, if it works out. But we'll try to start doing that throughout the season too. Yeah, you're right. It's gonna be late getting back, Josh, but enjoy yourself, man. First game of the season. Have fun. Be careful going back to Bowling Green Saturday night / Sunday morning, man. Appreciate you taking the time to watch us as well on here and jump in here and watch on YouTube. So we appreciate that too, man. You always put some cool comments in here for us. So we'll put a bow on this one. Y'all go subscribe, put a comment in there, follow on all the platforms, tell your friends about us, follow us on Twitter, retweet, all that good stuff. And we'll be back with games to talk about from here on out. So the fun is here. So for Jalen and Aaron, my name is Vinny. Appreciate Ben, Milam, and Patrick McGee from the Buzzardry Podcast giving us some Southern Miss perspective. And we'll be looking forward to doing it again. Stay tuned for the next episode, courtesy of Believe Podcast Network. Everybody have a good night, and we'll holler at y'all later.